Everybody, welcome back to I can make and cheese. I'm making cheese, and today we have some more Silk Road project from this game. It's the hotel manager minigame fighting game kind of thing going on here, and the dev. They made a couple of videos, but this video, more importantly, is about the combat, so you can see more about the game that I've been more interested in. It's combat, because I love the cool little mini games they're going to have that are in the game. So we made a video. This was posted just yesterday. I can't see because the font's too small. But it was posted yesterday, about a 15-minute video. So I want to talk about it, react to it, and watch it with y'all. So let us get into the video.
Yo, I'm Gada and I'm making a game solo, and this month has been entirely focused on combat. Over the past year, I spent most of my time building the foundation for the combat system. The Spirit Companion, the combo branching, and hit juggles, all of these mechanics had to exist before I could really start making the combat fun. This month, I've aimed to add content and, more importantly, try to transform what was essentially a combat prototype into something that actually feels fun to play. My initial goal was to create new attacks and polish the animations, but after working on it for the past few weeks, I realized that actually it won't be my main focus. The most time-consuming part turned out to be finding the right rhythm, making every attack naturally flow into the next, giving each combo a purpose, and making sure the combat encourages players to make interesting decisions instead of simply mashing buttons. Also, this month reminded me of a lesson I've learned several times throughout this project. If I don't want to block my creative flow, sometimes I need to force myself to work in a messy way. Most of the attack animation you've seen in the game so far aren't meant to be final. I actually created them quite a while ago, when I was only trying to build the foundation of the combat system. At that point, I wasn't designing the final gameplay yet. I simply needed enough attacks to prototype mechanics and experiment with ideas. Those animations were mainly there to establish the visual style and give me something to build the combat around. Back then, mechanics like juggling, combo routing, no-backs, and even the Spirit Companion either didn't exist yet or were not fully implemented. All I needed was a handful of attacks that could capture the feeling I was aiming for. I wasn't thinking much about timing, rhythm, or how each move would fit into a complete combat system. You could see that as work that eventually gets thrown away, but those animations did exactly what they were supposed to do. They gave me the building blocks I needed to create the combat system. Now that most of these systems are finally in place, I can come back to those old animations with a much clearer understanding of what each attack is actually meant to accomplish. Now that the core mechanics are in place, I'm working on the attack animation in a different way. Before, my only priority was to make the animation look good. Now I also need to ask myself, what purpose does this attack serve? Should it be just for raw damages? Should it be a launcher? Should it encourage the player to use the spirit?
So it reminds me of like Devil May Cry, which is always my leading example for like combat and combo stuff like that. There's not a purpose. I don't know if it's not a lot of purpose in some moves, but I think the biggest concern is to make it look cool. As long as it look cool and not combos just do cool stuff, I think that's like the biggest like factor. I don't like do. I mean, like DMC, when I do Stinger, which is the forward dash move, that's there. I can use that to get in close, and then you have like other moves to get them in the air, like I don't it's just some moves to like stall time in the air and keep the combo going, but like a purpose, I don't know if there really is any purpose between some moves. I just looking cool. Maybe it could be like debuffs on attacks, stuff like that. I don't know. Well, usually, we just do stuff just to look cool. That's really about
to extend the combo? Should it push enemies away when you're surrounded, or should it close the distance against ranged enemies? Or maybe it helps to get the distance at the end of the combo?
You understand.
I think that's one of the biggest differences between creating animations and designing combat. A cool looking attack doesn't automatically make combat interesting, and every attack should encourage a different decision from the player. The more combo routes with a different purpose I can create, the less repetitive the combat becomes, and that's really the direction I'm trying to push the system towards. Once every attack has a purpose, the next challenge is figuring out when each attack should happen, and that's where timing becomes incredibly important. Let's take juggling as an example. Imagine you've launched an enemy into the air. If your next attack takes too long to start, the enemy might hit the ground before the attack connects. The juggle is over and your combo ends. Most action games will simply try to avoid that, but in Silk Road Project I'm actually trying to use that as part of the combat design. One of my goals is to encourage players to actively use the spirit during their combos. So in my situations, I intentionally want there to be a small gap between the two hero attacks. If the player recognizes that reason, they can insert a spirit attack in between and keep the enemy airborne just long enough to continue the combo. Player who simply mash buttons will still be able to play the games without too much trouble, but players who learn the rhythm of their own combos will naturally get rewarded with longer and more satisfying sequences. And I think that's an important distinction. A good combat system isn't just about cool animations, it's also about rhythm and tempo. And it's giving player an incentive to master the flow of the combat by rewarding deliberate, well-timed actions. If you are looking at the new combat animation I've implemented this month, you may be wondering something. The new animations actually look a lot worse than the older ones. And yes, that was actually intentional. The priority this month wasn't animation quality, it was finding the right combat rhythm. That meant constantly going back and tweaking timings, moving a few keyframes here because an attack started too slowly, or shortening the recovery there because the combo no longer flowed properly, then playing the game again to see how it felt. I knew that if I spent days polishing every animations, I'd end up wasting a huge amount of time every time I wanted to change.
Also, real quick, homie got the whole Mass Effect trio right in the back. I love Mass Effect. Alright, this man got taste.
Something. So instead, I kept everything as simple as possible. Most of these attacks are made with very basic poses and only the minimum number of keyframes needed to communicate the movement. They are not meant to look impressive yet. They are just accurate enough to me to judge whether the gameplay feels right. Once I'm confident that...
And I'm also thinking, because like Devil May Cry, you also have different weapons, which should do different things as well, but I wonder if we want to have one weapon in this game and then we just change spirits. Some of you see in other trailers or other gameplay, we have different spirits with us sometimes. So I wonder if that's like going to be also a thing as well.
Every attack has the correct timing.
That's like
then I come back and polish them.
The gimmick.
To be honest, that's one of the hardest things to me, to restrain myself to make things look good and accept that it just needs the bare minimum amount of work while prototyping things. Ironically, after spending an entire month trying to improve the combat, I think I actually made it less exciting. One of my goals was to make the spirit feel more integrated into the combat system. To do that, I started slowing down certain attacks so players would naturally have enough time to weave a spirit attack between two hero attacks. From a gameplay perspective, it worked. There are more opportunities to extend juggles and the interaction between both characters become much clearer. But after taking a step back and simply playing the game for a while, I realized something felt off. The combat had lost part of its intensity. By slowing down attacks to create more decision making, I also removed some of the speed and the aggression that originally made the combat feel satisfying.
I can see that.
That's always the tricky part when balancing a combat system. A change can make the mechanics objectively better, while making the overall feeling worse. So I think I will have to go back to the drawing board and revisit those timing once again. Thankfully, because almost everything is still a placeholder, I don't feel bad making drastic changes.
On top of that too.
I can throw away ideas, rebuild combo routes, and completely rethink attacks without feeling like I've wasted weeks polishing some things that no longer fit the game. While I was revisiting all those attacks, I also spent a lot of time thinking about the overall combo structure. Until now, I only had a single combo chain that was mostly there to support the prototype. Now I'm building all the different branches the combat system will eventually support. Things like light heavy attacks or light heavy attacks, and every variation in between. But the important part isn't simply giving the player more combos. It's making sure each branch has a purpose. Some combo routes are long and deal a lot of damage, but they leave you vulnerable if the enemy manages to escape. Others travel a long distance and work as a gap closers against enemies trying to keep their distance. Some end with a step back, allowing you to safely disengage after attacking. Others launch enemies into the air and naturally become combo starters. And some are designed to knock enemies away, giving you breathing room when you are surrounded. The more situations I can create where each combo route solves a different problem, the more interesting the combat becomes.
Very true.
While expanding the combo system, I've also introduced something I've wanted to experiment with for a while: charge attacks. I think they fit very well with the philosophy I'm trying to build for Silk Road Project. The combat isn't really about pressing buttons as fast as possible, it's about understanding the rhythm of your attacks and recognizing the right moments to commit a stronger move. So now some combo branches can end with a charge heavy attacks. If that attack lands, it immediately transitions into a devastating sequence of rapid strikes, and I really like the pacing it creates. It now gives a very good incentive for the player to use the spirit at the right moment, with the right timing to keep the enemy stunned while the hero charges his powerful attack. It also adds depth to the combat systems and encourages players to master the game even more. The charge attacks also gave me the perfect opportunity to introduce something I was eager to work on: cinematics finishers. The idea is pretty simple.
We like those.
If a charge attack hits an enemy normally,
See, I'm always seeing one thing I will hope he puts in is some kind of an indicator or sound or like effect when you're charging a move, so you can know when it's like I know Demons is going to be my main example here, but like I think in like Devil May Cry, when I forget the move, but not the original have the move where you can charge up the blade and it'll hold it in the back and you'll see it like glow, and there's like a spark. I mean, Virgil has a spark when he does judgment cuts, let you know this is the time to release it, something like that. So you need stuff like indicator like that to let you know, or to let you know like this is the perfect time to release it, so you get like extra benefit out of it too. It'd be really cool.
you get powerful follow-up attack. But if that same charge attack
I know it's early,
connects
but I'm just
while
saying
the
it'd be
enemy is
cool
still being juggled,
and just helpful.
then something completely different happens. For just a few seconds, the game briefly takes control of the camera and transitions into a fully animated finisher. It's still part of the gameplay, but it's designed to feel like one of those over-the-top anime moments where the hero shows off in a flashy sequence.
One thing I'm gonna say about this, I can't remember what it's from, but maybe it's just games that I play. But like, I hope when the finisher finishes, you don't get stuck, because many games there's a lot of enemies on screen. They kind of break the rules, or kind of just like you're gonna like as soon as you're done with that, they're gonna jump you. So like, please don't make people just be stuck in animation after they get done with it. Maybe be like, man, as soon as I'm done, let me be able to move. Like in almost like Ninja Gaiden. When you do the I can't remember the name, but it was like, I'm thinking like Naruto with the lotus, but it was the spin move in the air. It's been a long time. When you do that, that usually like stuns everybody around you or gives you like a brief moment of vulnerability. Because the second you get done doing something, enemies will jump you. And I don't know how aggressive this game is going to be with that, but Izuni Drop, that's what the name is. But just don't be like that.
And
It may
from a
never be a
gameplay
problem,
perspective,
but you
I
know.
like that it rewards players for mastering the combat. For now, you don't get these finishers by pressing a dedicated button, you get them because you successfully managed your combo, kept the enemy airborne, and committed to the right attack at exactly the right moment. For the upcoming demo, I've finished 3 different finishers, and I think that's probably enough variety for now. They are short, flashy, and hopefully satisfying enough that players will actively try to trigger them instead of seeing them as scripted events. I had a lot of fun working on this cinematic action finisher. Unlike the regular gameplay attacks, these animations aren't placeholders. Since they are cinematic sequences, I had far fewer gameplay constraints to worry about. I wasn't constantly adjusting timings to make combo routes work, so I could finally spend time polishing the animation itself. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. It felt good to slow down for a moment and simply focus on making something look as dynamic and expressive as I possibly could. Looking back at them now, I genuinely feel like they are some of the best animation I've made for the project so far. Actually, it's when I was done working on those animations without constraints that I realized, while getting back to animating normal gameplay attacks, that something wasn't right. After spending days polishing these flashy cinematic sequences, my regular combat suddenly felt much less energetic, especially in comparison. Working on flashy and very fast animation made me realize that for the kind of anime-inspired combats I'm aiming for, strong poses and rhythm are probably more important than perfectly smooth motions. Sometimes an attack doesn't need too much animation. It simply needs great timing and strong key poses. Creating these finishers was definitely one of the most enjoyable things I worked on this month, but its implementation into the game turned out to be much more complex than I expected. The real challenge was making those cinematics work anywhere in the game. Unlike a traditional cutscene, these finishers can start almost everywhere. Sometimes you are standing in the middle of an open field, sometimes you are fighting next to a wall, or sometimes there is a rock, a tree, or an obstacle right beside you. And as an animator, I have absolutely no control over any of that. So suddenly, every animation had to work regardless of the environment. And I had to be more cautious and take a bit more time to think thoroughly of how I can avoid gameplay issues.
Yeah.
At first, I just made really flashy animations without worrying about the distance the character travels. It looked great, but it quickly raised very obvious questions. What happens if there's a wall right in the middle of the animation? How should the character behave in this situation? Well, either the character goes straight through the wall or they collide with it. Neither option is great. If they ignore collisions, when the cinematic ends, the player and the enemy can end up standing inside a wall. But if they keep collisions enabled, then things can become unpredictable. Imagine one character gets blocked by a small rock while the other one continues following its animation. The entire sequence immediately falls apart. And that's just for the character, but what should the camera do? Should it also stay attached to the player? Because if the player gets stuck, the camera gets stuck too. And suddenly your cinematics looks terrible. At that point, I realized I wasn't looking for a perfect solution anymore. I was looking for the least problematic compromise.
I just make whatever.
After trying several different approaches for my cinematic actions in my game, I eventually accepted that I wasn't going to be able to do everything I wanted. And honestly, I think that's fine. Because sometimes creativity comes from constraints. So I changed my approach entirely. Instead of creating huge cinematic attacks that travel across the battlefield, I now try to design finishers where both characters stay relatively close to where they started, and collisions are temporarily disabled during the sequence, which means, yes, sometimes characters will clip through walls or briefly float above the ground, but that's a compromise I'm willing to accept. What matters is that once the animation ends, both characters are placed exactly where they were before the cinematic started.
Yeah.
From a gameplay perspective, that solves a huge number of problems. Enemies won't accidentally end up behind obstacles, players won't trigger events they weren't supposed to reach, and because I know exactly where the characters will end up, I can also use the camera angles to hide some of these little tricks from the player. At the end of the day, I think that's a good example.
I always say one thing you probably could do if they're floating in the air, make the character. You could do like a lift animation that makes them like knock something in the air so that like they're falling kind of thing. That'd help them, not like they're just standing on the air. It could be cool. And I remember like it's happened in early days of Warfare when you do finishers. You used to be like stuck, and then you either you're being the wall, or you fall to the earth.
Pull up something important when
just
doing
saying.
game there. Perfection isn't always the goal.
I'm sure you can see them
best
like in the air.
is simply the
like
one that creates the fewest problems. So that's pretty much what I've been working on this month. Even though I added a lot of new content, I think the biggest progress wasn't actually visible. It was understanding the combat system a little better and figuring out what still isn't working. The combat is still not where I want it to be, the timing needs more work, some attacks need to become much more dynamic, and I still have a lot of iteration ahead of me before I'm happy with the overall game feel. But that was expected. I knew that balancing a feature can sometimes take even more time than implementing it. So next month, I'll probably keep iterating on everything you've seen today. Hopefully with a little bit more speed and a little bit more impact. And the combat systems that feels even closer to the vision I've had in mind from the very beginning. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next vlog.
One of the biggest topics in regards to Path of Exile 2's balance during the early access period of the game has been the state of defenses.
Stop it. I don't want to keep doing that. I think this is much realist. But anyway, cool little insight of what's going on for this month. So I guess it's going to be a monthly series. We can come back every month to see what's going on. End up until, but we'll see when that demo comes out too. On top of that, I'll keep you updated when that pops up. Links will be in the description for the video and for the Steam page. Go wishlist it because it looks like a pretty interesting game so far. You know, I'm still pretty much, you know, like waiting for this game to drop. It looks pretty fun so far, and they're really insightful. Was doing the truth, kind of doing stuff like that. Like I said, you know, it says it's gonna be compromised. Last stuff is his first game kind of thing, so now everything's gonna be perfect, which is, you know, it's pretty cool. And I like that kind of approach to it. You know, it's not gonna be perfect. Do what you can. This is a man by himself, by the way, just some single guy. So, yeah, cool. Know what's going on. Keep you updated, and that's gonna be it for this video. So, take it easy.